Well, hey there. Welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show that is dedicated to progressive rock, hard rock, heavy metal, and other forms of rock music. So this is it. Final kind of episode for My Strange Fascinations, although I will be doing an honorable mentions, but this will be the final episode for the number one band that fits into My Strange Fascinations. I left this one unsaid in my this week video earlier on this week, but I figure most people will figure it out that it's going to be these guys, Rush. I've included my this album, which is the one I've just started to listen to. Kind of I think it's a live album. I just started listening to it, and then this one, which is probably my favorite Rush album. So Rush's history goes back to 1977 with me. My first encounter with Rush occurred on a weekday during the week, and it might have been on Don Kirshner's rock concert, but I was young then. I was probably 12, and I asked my dad if I could watch it on TV. They were doing two songs. One was A Farewell to Kings, the other one was Closer to the Heart. That's my recollection, but it may actually have been Xanadu and Closer to the Heart. I don't remember. My first impression was that I wasn't sure at first if Geddy Lee was boy or girl. I thought the band was kind of strange sounding, and just the whole mist in the air and everything just was bizarre to me. I'd never seen anything like that. Got to remember, in 1977, I was around the time when Love Gun came out, and I was a huge Kiss fan and nothing else mattered. But a friend of mine had been trying to talk me into listening to other stuff, and he had mentioned that this band Rush was going to be on the air, so I watched it. But I didn't think much of it, and my dad said, "Those guys are weird, how can you listen to that stuff?" So I didn't listen to it anymore. A few years later, when we had moved to the East End, I went to the library, and while I was at the library I started looking at albums, and there was this one called Fly By Night by Rush, and I really loved the cover. It just really captured me. So I took it home and I started listening to it, and it was different. It was unlike, by that time we're like now talking about late 1977, might have been 1978 actually. Could have been 1978, I'm not sure. Anyways, I was listening to this album. A couple songs I liked quite a bit. Anthem was one of them. The other one was Fly By Night, the title track. So I said, wow, this is pretty interesting. And then I had the album for about 3 weeks, and I took it back to the library and forgot about Rush again. Another year or six months or something would pass when we moved to another location, and then I had my own room. For the first time in my life, I had my own room, and I started putting up posters. Kiss was everywhere, but then I also started listening to some other stuff. Amongst those other musicians was Rush, and Rush was one of those bands that I liked a lot. The first album I purchased was this one, but I have been listening to little bits of here and there and around until I bought this album when it came out, and that's when Rush took off for me, because within 6 months from that album, they were my favorite band. And the love affair with them continued for a couple of years until 1982-83, when they started moving away from their sound and became more synth pop, and I just couldn't take that. When that Grace Under Pressure album came out, that was it. I was out of there. I bailed on them, and I would not listen to anything new until probably the turn of the century. So a good 18 to 19 years passed before I would really listen to anything new by them. I still would go back and listen to the old stuff. I still was listening to that quite a bit. And at this point in time, Rush then became my second favorite band, as Yes moved ahead of them. But Yes did the same thing, so that's when I started moving into a different direction altogether. So by the time I came back to Rush around my daughter's birth in 2001, they were neck and neck with Yes again for my number one, but neither band had done really anything for me in a decade or more. So when Rush came back in 2006 with that Snakes and Arrows, that's when it took off for me. By then they were my number one band again, and it's been that way ever since. Like for the last 20 years they've been my number one band, and I've listened to just about everything they have now, even the stuff that I don't really care much for. I have quite a few live things by them that I like. I like their live show quite a bit. And what's more importantly, they're a hometown band for me. So they come from my hometown. And I think they are one of those bands that really have a lot of integrity, because it's the same guys pretty much their entire career, with the exception of the drummer who changed after the first album. But they've been true to the Canadian way, I think. They're very Canadian, I think. They have the progressive sound that I really love. I love most of their albums quite a bit. I like all three guys. I actually relate to all three guys. I relate to Alex's sense of humor. I think he's kind of the glue of the band. I know some people think it's Geddy. Maybe it is, but to me, Alex is the glue because of his humor. Geddy Lee, he has a lot of things I like about him. Other than his bass ability and his vocal singing and his music writing, which I love, he also is a baseball nut, which I am. He's a collector, which apparently I am. I didn't think of myself that way, but I am. And he just has that Canadian way of thinking, and I just really relate to him. And the same with Neil. He's a reader and a writer, and I'm both of those things. And he's more of a... Neil Peart is like me in one way very much. He's a bit of a shy away from publicity, and you wouldn't think that I'm on this show, and not a person with a lot of people in his life, but a few, and that's it. A very humble type of guy. I don't know that I qualify for that, but so I relate to all three of them on a personal level, as well as on it, listening to their music, and they've had huge impact in my life too. So whenever I've had down times, I've turned to Rush to bring myself back up. Whenever I've wanted to pursue something that I didn't know that I was qualified, I would look to Rush. I always look to them for guidance. Not them specifically, because I never spoke to any of them, but just through their music and through what they've done with their life. So I was really happy when they made the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I was happy when they got the Order of Canada. I was happy to be a Rush fan. I don't claim to be the biggest Rush fan in the world. There's guys that know more about them than I'll ever know and have followed them right from the beginning. Those are the true Rush fans. I'm a Rush fan in the sense that they're my favorite band. I don't think they're perfect by any stretch. I think they went through some growing times. They tried different things. They wanted to expand out. And like every band, they want to make a living at this. They don't want to just make albums for the sake of making albums. They like to make music. That's the thing about them I like. And they like it to be original. And they like to stick to their guns. But they've tried things to try and make themselves more popular too. I don't have a problem with that. The other thing about them too that I like is that once Neil was gone, there was never any idea that they were going to do something else as Rush. Like Rush was those three, and when those three were done, one of them was gone, that was it. They may do other things together, but I don't see it being called Rush. I hope that's the case. It was the case for Led Zeppelin, and they idolized them, so it was probably the case for Rush too. I don't want a Yes scenario going on here, where there's more people coming and going than shake a stick. But at any rate, that's my favorite band. That's my favorite fascination for today. That's my strange fascination with those boys from Toronto, whose a lot of their lyrics, especially early on, I related to them because they were places that I knew and had been myself. So for me, Rush was always number one. It's not even really close. There's nobody even close to them. there's no chance of them ever losing that title, I think. But you never know. If I live to be maybe 80 or 85, somebody might take their place. But at this point in time, I think they're there for good. And I love Rush. Never been happier with them than I have been. Sad to see Neil go, of course. That was a really, really hard day when that happened. But I turned to Rush to get over it, like I always do. So, anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you subscribe. It's much appreciated. And we'll be on to our honorable mentions later this afternoon, and then on to our new series starting tomorrow. So you have yourself a good evening, and goodbye.